I mean, if Mark ever screws up, Hannah's got Greg waiting in the wings. Right, Greg? That was the line, delivered with a tipsy giggle by one of her friends, holding a wine glass like a microphone, as if she were doing stand-up. The others howled, clutching their little clutch purses and Chardonnay like they were on some housewives' reunion special. Greg, yes, that Greg, leaned against the wine barrel behind her, smug as a politician who'd just dodged an ethics committee. He gave a slow, lazy smile, the kind of smile that said he'd heard it before, the kind of smile that made you wonder if it wasn't a joke at all. My wife didn't say a word, just sipped her drink and smiled at the floor. Not a denial, not even a glance my way, just a sip. That silence was louder than the joke. Now imagine it's your anniversary. 22 years. Not a fluke, not a fling, but the kind of years that dull your back and gray your hair. A vineyard rental, live jazz trio, friends from both coasts flown in. She even had custom napkins printed with our wedding date on them. Mark and Hannah, Est, 2003. I still have one of those napkins, folded, in my pocket. I hadn't used it yet until that moment because I walked straight over to Greg, pulled off my wedding band, 22 years of metal pressed into skin, and dropped it right into his open, waiting hand. Tag in, man. She's all yours. Then I turned and walked out. Silence doesn't usually have a shape, but that one did. It was shaped like a collapsed wine glass. A frozen jazz trio, a bunch of frozen faces, mouths half open mid-laugh, eyes darting toward Hannah like she was supposed to fix it, say something, anything, but she just stood there, blinking like a deer. If you're still reading and you're not subscribed yet, do it now. These stories come from real places. And honestly, your support is what fuels the team behind all this. Keeps us telling the stories some people would rather leave buried. Anyway, by the time she remembered how to move her feet, I was in the car. No yelling, no how could you, just engine, tires, night. I didn't even look in the rearview mirror. Didn't need to. I knew exactly what I was leaving behind. She followed up, of course, tried to call. I watched the phone screen light up as I sat parked near the marina, that same stupid napkin in my hand, now crumpled, half torn. Hannah Mobile. I let it ring 7 more times. Then I turned the phone off and tossed it into the glove compartment next to the emergency flashlight and the half-melted breath mints. She texted. That was uncalled for. Uncalled for. You see, the thing about jokes is that they always sound lightest to the person throwing them, never to the one catching them between the ribs. But it wasn't the joke, it wasn't even Greg, it was the fact that she let them laugh. That she joined in, that she looked down at her wine glass instead of looking at me, that she made me feel like a ghost at my own anniversary party. You'd think the betrayal comes from cheating or secrets. Sometimes it's just letting someone mock the man who bought you a furnace in the middle of January when you swore you were freezing. The man who stood beside you when your dad had that stroke and you cried into my flannel until 4 a.m. The man who took your cat to the emergency vet and lied to you about the $900 bill just so you wouldn't feel guilty. That man, publicly dismissed like a service warranty. I didn't drive home. Not then, not ever again, as it would turn out. Instead, I checked into a small business-class hotel just off the interstate. Not romantic, not dramatic, just clean sheets and silence. I took a long shower, threw my clothes in the sink, and I sat on the edge of the bed with that ring mark still etched into my finger like a burn. There's a quiet kind of decision a man makes when he realizes he's not needed anymore, not respected, not even noticed. I made that decision somewhere between towel drying my hair and watching the ice melt in a vending machine soda. And when I finally lay back against that bland white pillow, I didn't cry, didn't rage, I just planned. She reached the parking lot, still laughing, nervously, breathlessly, trying to hold on to the party tone like it was some kind of shield. But the headlights were already fading into the vineyard mist. She broke into a run, heels clicking uselessly across the gravel, but by the time she reached the last row of parked cars, the sound of his tires was gone. What she saw instead, an empty space, a patch of oil where his truck usually sat, and the faint smell of burning brakes. She stared into the road like the car would reverse itself. Come back, let her explain. It was just a joke. Just wine. Just her idiot friends running their mouths. But the road didn't blink. She stood there a beat too long, then flipped her hair back, straightened her dress, and walked back up the slope with the sort of forced smile that cracked under moonlight. One of her friends intercepted her halfway. "Where's Mark?" the woman asked, glass in hand. Hannah waved her off like it was beneath her to even answer. "He's just being Mark. You know how he gets." Someone chuckled. Another shrugged. The conversation moved on to vacation homes and someone's kid's college essay, but the party had a leak now, and everyone could smell it. She made it another 40 minutes, mingling like nothing had happened, pausing only to grab another glass of wine, then a third. The buzz didn't hit the way it usually did, not with that empty ring finger itching under the string lights. Back home, the first thing she noticed was the absence of noise. No sports reruns murmuring from the den, no jazz radio humming in the kitchen, just stillness. She walked in and immediately sensed it, wrong air, like the soul of the house had left. She flipped the hallway light, his coat rack empty, the bench by the front door, no boots. She called his name once as if he might be in the bathroom or out on the back deck with a cigar. No answer, no rustling, just the hum of the refrigerator and the click of the grandfather clock he insisted on keeping even though it never told the right time. She stepped into the bedroom. Half the closet, his side, was stripped, hangers still swinging, the empty indent of a drawer left ajar, his cologne bottle gone, toothbrush gone, the dog's leash gone. She opened the garage, his tools, cleared, fishing gear, gone, the toolbox he got from his dad, empty shelf. Back in the kitchen, she saw it, a single piece of paper, no envelope, no header, just 8 words in his blocky, stubborn handwriting. "Consider me officially tagged out." No anger, no list of demands, no sarcastic comments, just a clean sentence, sterile, efficient, unmistakable. She read it once, then again, then laughed, but it caught in her throat halfway because there was nothing funny about it. She crumpled the note and immediately uncrumpled it, smoothed it out on the granite countertop, as if flattening it would undo it. She sat on the bar stool, opened her phone, hit call. No answer. She called again. Voicemail. She typed out a text. "Can we talk?" Then backspaced it, typed again. "Seriously? This is how you handle it?" Deleted that too. Finally sent, "You made your point. Come home." No dots, no reply. She called one of his coworkers, left a voicemail like it was casual. "Hey, has Mark said anything? He kind of stormed out of the party early, just checking." She waited. Nothing. Then she called his brother. His brother answered, just not the way she wanted. "Hey," she said lightly, "do you know where Mark went?" A pause, then his voice, flat. "He's done." "Done with what?" she asked, still clinging to the illusion that this was a rough night, a mood swing. "Done with you, Hannah. And honestly, none of us blame him." Click. She stared at her phone. That was when the dread seeped in, not in a dramatic thunderclap, but like a slow leak from under the door. She stood alone in the kitchen, full makeup, hair perfect, dress zipped tight, and suddenly freezing. She wasn't being ignored. She was being removed. No shouting, no plates thrown, no courtroom threats, just subtraction. She poured herself another glass of wine, but her hand shook halfway through and she spilled some. She didn't clean it up, because for the first time in years, she wasn't sure if the man she thought would always be there actually was. By Monday morning, the panic had shifted from theatrical to logistical. She woke up in the empty house with the TV still on from the night before, some infomercial buzzing nonsense about miracle joint supplements. She reached for her phone, blinking through the hangover fog, and saw no missed calls, no messages, no let's talk, no sarcasm, nothing. She typed out one last attempt. "You're being ridiculous. Let's be adults and figure this out." Sent. Read. No reply. That single read receipt hurt more than any insult he could have thrown at her. She put on her favorite navy blouse, the one he once called boardroom lethal, and drove to his office. Receptionist didn't even look surprised. "Oh, Hannah, he's on leave." "Leave?" she asked, suddenly feeling the weight of that word. "Indefinite leave," the receptionist clarified. "Filed Friday. Said it was time for a reset." Reset. He never used that word. He used to mock people who said things like that. Reset is what people say when they've already hit delete. She asked to speak to his boss, was told he wasn't in, asked to speak to HR, was told it was confidential. On the way back to the car, she opened their banking app. Her thumbprint didn't work. That had never happened before. She entered the password manually, locked out. She tried the joint card at a gas station later that afternoon. Declined. Tried the emergency credit card they'd had for years, the one she used to buy a purse once when she said it was a travel necessity. Canceled. She called the bank. Sorry, ma'am. We can't discuss the status of that account without both parties present. Both parties. She wasn't one of them anymore. She sat in her car, engine idling, scrolling through her contacts. Friends, couples, his brother, her friends, her old friends, not one message since the party. She finally texted her brother, "This is getting out of hand. Can you call him? He listens to you." He replied 5 minutes later, one line, "He's done." And honestly, none of us blame him. She stared at the message, reread it twice, and felt a chill spread under her skin like someone had opened a freezer door behind her. What does that mean? None of us. Who's us? She started making calls. Julia, straight to voicemail. Meredith, rang twice, then a message. Sorry, I'm in meetings all day. Keith, ignored. Even Trisha, her college roommate and maid of honor. I just don't want to be involved. I hope you understand. She didn't understand. She checked Facebook, scrolled, Mark's profile, gone. Not deactivated, blocked. She checked their wedding album, still there, then gone. Deleted as she refreshed. She opened their shared photo drive, empty. Not a tantrum, not a man storming out to sleep on a buddy's couch for a night or two. This wasn't a mood. It was a plan. And not just a plan, an infrastructure. Coordinated, precise. She stood in the kitchen again, the same place she'd found the note, and looked around like she was seeing it for the first time. Every corner still neat, every frame still hung. But the house suddenly felt staged, like a model home, like something already listed. She pulled open a drawer. No keys, no garage opener, no dog food, even the dog bowls were gone. She didn't cry, not yet. Crying requires an outlet. She was still in the denial stage, but it was cracking fast. She pulled up his name in her email, dozens of messages over the years, recipes, tickets, birthday plans. Now she sent one more. This isn't how adults handle things. Come home. The email bounced. Undeliverable. This account is no longer active. She opened the freezer. The ice tray was half full. She stared at it, unblinking, as if it held answers. That cold, creeping sensation wasn't just metaphor anymore. It was literal. She was alone. Not in the poetic sense, not in the, oh, we had a fight sense. Alone. The man who never raised his voice, who fixed the squeaky door hinge without being asked, who remembered to refill her favorite cereal even when she forgot. It wasn't that he left, it was that he evaporated. And everyone else, her circle, his family, the shared ecosystem they'd built over 2 decades, had quietly closed the door behind him. And she was left outside the system, without a password, without a contact, without a clue. 3 days after the party, a courier knocked. Not the usual guy, not the smiling kid in cargo shorts who once asked if their dog was named after a baseball player. This one was in a navy blazer, clipboard in hand, expressionless, corporate, efficient. Delivery for Mrs. Langford, he said, holding out a digital pad. She signed without reading. Habit, assumption, power move, whatever it was, she regretted it 5 minutes later when she tore open the envelope and saw the letterhead. It wasn't a bill. It was a transfer, the house deed, signed and notarized, filed already according to the timestamp. She flipped the packet, scanning fast, her breath catching when she saw the attached breakdown. Mortgage, reassigned property taxes, reassigned utilities, disconnected from former holders' accounts, water, trash, sewer, pending her direct setup, home insurance, now in her name, title solely hers. And stapled to the back, a single sheet of printer paper with a heading, "What you wanted to manage alone. Now it's yours." Bullet points followed. House, yours dog, rehome storage, emptied, retirement plans, divided streaming services, canceled mail, rerouted landscaping service, unsubscribed, spare key, destroyed no signature. Just the facts. She stood in the kitchen staring at the paper like it might burst into flames if she blinked hard enough. It didn't. Instead, the silence in the house bloomed, grew teeth. She stormed into the living room, grabbed her phone and started calling. His lawyer's office? We can't disclose client movement. Her bank? Yes, the deed transfer was legitimate. No, we can't reverse it. The utility companies? You're the primary now, ma'am? It's your responsibility to establish service. The water company even asked her to verify her driver's license via the app. She hung up mid-call and slammed her phone onto the marble counter so hard it buzzed off and landed face down on the tile. Cracked just a hairline, just enough to sting. She wasn't being left. She was being handed everything, and not out of kindness, out of precision. She walked to the back patio door and flung it open. "Bo!" she shouted. No sound, no pause, no jingle of the collar tag. Be louder now, edge in her voice. Still nothing. She rushed down the deck steps and checked the side gate. Closed, latched, not locked. His truck was gone. Bo's bed was gone. His food bin? Emptied. She stood there in her sandals, bare arms in the wind, watching a neighbor across the street rake leaves like it was just another Tuesday, like she wasn't unraveling in real time. Back inside, she yanked open closets, looking for evidence that he hadn't left it all tidy, something left behind, something he'd forgotten. There was nothing, not even a post-it. Upstairs, in the spare bedroom he once used for Zoom calls, the desk drawers were cleared. Even the Ethernet cable was gone. She opened the linen closet. Empty shelf. She stood in front of it like it had personally insulted her. Then finally she let herself break. Not with sobs. Not the ugly cry she'd always rolled her eyes at in movies. This was different. She laughed, just once. Sharp, bitter. The kind of laugh that echoes back at you like a slap in an empty room. Because now it was clear he wasn't taking anything from her. He was giving her everything. The house she loved, hers now, fully, legally, along with the $200 a month mortgage he'd carried mostly alone since the refinance. The tax assessments he used to fight every spring, her battle now, the broken irrigation system, the home security bill, the neighborhood HOA notices, every tedious detail she used to delegate in a "you handle it, babe" tone. Now her solo act, even the damn streaming passwords. She clicked Netflix and got a login screen. No account found. She didn't yell. Who would she yell at? Instead, she opened the fridge. It was still full. Greek yogurt, hummus, the organic juice he never drank. But it all looked foreign now, like food from a stranger's kitchen. She opened the trash can and saw it was empty, not just clean, replaced. A new liner, tucked perfectly, no smell, no crumbs. The man had taken time to change the trash bag before leaving her. That cut more than the canceled cards, more than the list, because it meant he didn't act in rage, he acted in order. She stared at the deed paperwork again. This wasn't a man trying to break her. It was a man granting her exactly what she claimed she wanted: independence, total control, complete and utter solitude. Her rage fizzled, not because it wasn't justified, but because there was no one to aim it at. He wasn't being cruel. He was being finished. She waited 3 full days before texting Greg, not because she didn't want to earlier, but because she knew how it would look. Too fast, too obvious, too desperate. So she waited. Let the silence stretch long enough to pretend she was in control. Then finally typed, "Coffee?" No emoji, just the word, like it meant nothing and everything. He replied within 10 minutes. "Sure. That spot near the park?" She smiled, like she'd won something. Threw on a sweater she knew hugged her right, sprayed a perfume she hadn't used since before Mark insisted on cleaner air at home. That smell alone felt like oxygen. Greg was already there when she arrived. He stood outside the cafe, fiddling with his sunglasses, eyes darting like he didn't want to be seen. He gave her a half smile, not the cocky grin from the vineyard, not the one she'd imagined so many times while married. This one was smaller, tight around the corners. They ordered. She tried to play it cool, crossing her legs just right, angling her face in that way she knew photographed well. "How've you been?" she asked. He shrugged. "Busy." She nodded, gave a little laugh. "You know how crazy that party got, huh?" "Yeah," he said. Sip of coffee. Eyes everywhere but her. "Didn't see that coming." She waited for the punchline, the flirty remark, the "but you looked incredible" follow-up. It never came. "I've been dealing with a lot," she offered, fishing. "Yeah, I figured." Another sip. She leaned in slightly, lowered her voice. "It's just weird how quickly it all fell apart." Still nothing. "You know," she said, biting her lip for effect, A lot of people used to say you and I had unfinished business. Greg smiled, but it wasn't the kind she hoped for. It was that pitying, quiet smile people give when they know something you don't want to hear. He leaned back in his chair. Can I be honest? Always. I didn't think Mark would actually leave. She blinked. Excuse me? I mean, I figured he'd get mad. Maybe give you the silent treatment, crash at his brother's place for a week or two. But this? He motioned vaguely. The full ghost protocol? Nah, never saw that coming. Her mouth went dry. You sound disappointed. I'm not disappointed, Greg said carefully. Just not prepared. She stared at him. What does that mean? Greg hesitated, then exhaled slowly. Look, Hannah, I didn't sign up for all this. This? She echoed, like the word physically offended her. He nodded. The chaos, the aftermath, the calls from people asking if we're a thing now, the looks, your brother texting me, even your mom, weirdly, sending me some passive-aggressive meme about second chances. She narrowed her eyes. So what? You flirt in front of 100 people, smirk like you've got some inside track on me, then act surprised when the floor caves in? He didn't answer, just gave that same shrug, that same maddening casual shrug he used to give back in their 20s when she wanted to talk about where they were going. She tried again. Greg, it's not like I'm asking for a commitment. I just thought, after all these years, you'd be someone I could count on. You were always there. No, he said quietly. I was always around. There's a difference. It hit her then, like a slap wrapped in velvet. Greg had never been a backup. He'd been a prop, a placeholder in her fantasy of options, something to keep Mark guessing, something to smirk about over drinks with her friends, a shadow she dragged behind her like insurance. And now he was stepping into the light and realizing he didn't want the job. You were so confident at the party, she said bitterly. He looked embarrassed. Yeah, well, wine, ego, bad judgment. She felt her stomach twist. So you're walking away too? He met her eyes. No, I'm just not walking into this. The coffee turned sour in her mouth. The cafe suddenly too bright, too loud. Greg stood. I should go. Got a meeting. She didn't move. Just sat there, watching him walk out the door, sunglasses back on, shoulders relaxed like he'd just dodged a very expensive bullet. She stared at his empty seat, the chair still warm but the man gone. The silence wasn't new, but the realization that she had no one left to break it, that was. She hadn't been to the lakehouse in over a year. Life got busy. Work, holidays, excuses. But that place, tucked between two coves with the wooden dock that creaked in the morning fog, was supposed to be hers. Theirs, a kind of sacred ground where nothing ever changed, where summer meant mosquito bites and blueberry pancakes, and winters meant flannel sheets and card games by the fireplace. Mark used to call it the pause button on life. So on a cold, overcast Thursday, she drove up there, hoping for the pause, for something, anything that would remind her who she was before her life started unraveling like cheap yarn. She didn't tell anyone, she didn't pack much, just a duffel bag, an old sweater, a bottle of wine, and the half-diluted idea that maybe she'd find peace staring at the lake. Maybe Mark would show up too, driven by the same instinct, some cosmic symmetry pulling them both back to the place where things always made sense. But the driveway was different. The gravel had been repacked. The weeds she remembered from childhood, gone. There was a new mailbox, not just a new number, but a new name. She stepped out of the car slowly, as if not to startle the place. Even from the edge of the driveway, something felt off. There were toys scattered on the lawn, a plastic tricycle, a folded-up soccer net. The flagpole was missing, replaced with a flower bed. She walked up the porch stairs, feeling her pulse rise. Maybe it was a rental. Maybe someone was squatting. Maybe she knocked. A woman answered, mid-30s, messy bun, yoga pants, smiling in that way only people with stable lives do. Hi, can I help you? Hannah cleared her throat. I think there's been a mistake. This is my house. The woman blinked, confused. We bought it in July. No, I mean, this was my family's house. For years. A child's voice called from inside. Mom, where's my tablet? Just a sec, honey, the woman called over her shoulder, then turned back. I'm sorry. Are you Hannah? Yes. Relief. Yes, that's me. Oh, then you must be Mark's wife. Or, sorry, ex? The word punched harder than expected. She didn't answer. The woman stepped out onto the porch, closing the door gently behind her. He mentioned you might stop by someday. Said the house had a lot of history. He seemed, I don't know, resolved about letting it go. When? Hannah managed to ask. Before summer. Early June, I think. He was very organized, had all the paperwork ready, even left us a binder labeled Property Legacy. I've never seen a more prepared seller. She stood there, bag slipping off her shoulder, staring at the door she used to decorate every Christmas. The window where Mark once carved their initials into the glass with his ring when they were still dating. The porch swing where they'd once fallen asleep together after too much red wine and too little bug spray. Now it belonged to a stranger, a mom with a minivan and a yoga mat and a kid yelling about tablets. He didn't tell me he sold it, she said flatly. The woman gave a sympathetic smile. Maybe he didn't need to. She thanked her, mechanically, and walked back down the stairs, half expecting to wake up from the dream. But the gravel still crunched, the wind still nipped, the house didn't change back. She got in the car and didn't start it right away. Instead, she just sat there, gripping the steering wheel, heart pounding like she'd been robbed. But there was no theft here. It was worse. It was deliberate removal. He didn't just get rid of the house. He sold the place that tethered her past to her present. The only place left where memories hadn't been tainted, where they laughed without bitterness, where her mother used to make sun tea and her dad built the dock with his bare hands, where she and Mark once talked about bringing their kids that never came. Gone, strategically, silently, cleanly, and the fact that he did it before the party, before the joke, before the ring in Greg's hand, that meant it wasn't a reaction, it was a plan. He'd been erasing her footprints long before she knew she was walking on thin ice. Back on the main road, she pulled over and tried to call her attorney. Got voicemail. She tried the realtor they used years ago. Same result. She just wanted someone to confirm it, someone to tell her it wasn't final, that there was still a loophole, a delay, a mistake. But there wasn't, and somewhere between the lake and the highway, she understood the depth of it. He wasn't trying to get back at her. He was just making sure that nothing, not even the nostalgia, could bring her comfort again. Not in his world, not in the past, not ever. It came on a Saturday morning, the kind of morning that used to mean pancakes and bare feet on hardwood, when Mark would brew coffee so strong it could melt rust, and she'd complain about the bitterness, then sip 3 cups anyway. Now it was silence. Cold cereal, a cracked phone screen, and a pile of mail she hadn't had the energy to open in 2 days. The package was on the front step, plain brown paper, no return address, no tracking code, just her name written in blocky, unmistakable letters. Hannah. Her stomach knotted. She didn't open it right away. Left it on the counter like a stray animal she wasn't sure would bite. She poured herself coffee, took 2 sips, then finally walked back and unwrapped it. The cardboard gave way to bubble wrap. And then the wedding photo, their wedding photo, the one that used to sit on the fireplace mantel, encased in a thick silver frame, her veil slightly crooked, Mark's tie uneven, both of them grinning like idiots in the July sun, not a posed shot, the candid one, the one her mother said captured real love. She stared at it. The glass was shattered, not in shards, just one long jagged crack running diagonally across their faces right through the middle of her smile. There was no note, no card, no explanation, just the photo. She turned it over, hands shaking more than she wanted to admit. The back of the frame was scratched, not written with a pen, scratched like someone had used a key or a blade. The sentence was short. Funny how jokes leave marks. She gasped, actually gasped, because it wasn't just a reference, it was a replica. At the party, when her friend made the backup husband joke, someone had snorted, "God, that'll leave a mark." And she had laughed too hard, laughed like it was a roast, not a relationship. And Mark had heard that. He'd heard it all. And now he'd given her a literal version of the metaphor. She set the frame down, too fast, too rough. The cracked glass slid slightly inside the silver edge. She backed away like it might shatter further on its own. She paced the kitchen, palms on her head, trying to catch her breath. This wasn't just punishment. This was choreography. She opened the kitchen drawer and pulled out her old keepsake box, digging through old photos, mementos, cards, all still there. Every Valentine's Day note, every anniversary dinner receipt she used to stash because memories matter. She pulled them out one by one. Every memory she had access to, he'd already deleted. But this he left. He sent it. Not to apologize, not to reminisce, and to etch something into her. Not with rage, not with yelling, with silence sharpened to a scalpel. He didn't say, "You hurt me." He said, "Now you know how precision feels." She carried the frame to the hallway mirror and held it up beside her reflection, her younger self, smiling, open, radiant, right beside the woman staring back now. Puffy eyes, stress lines, a cardigan worn 3 days straight. Two versions of her, side by side, separated by a decade and a crack in the glass. She whispered, "Why are you doing this?"
But she already knew. She was the one who turned loyalty into a punchline, who stood by while her friends treated her husband like a sidekick, who laughed when they mocked him, and smiled when his ring hit another man's palm.
This wasn't about punishment anymore. It was presentation. Mark wasn't yelling from the rooftops. He was handing her curated exhibits, one by one, no explanation, no delivery note, just a gallery of consequences. She set the photo face down on the entry table, but not before glancing at the etched words one more time. Funny how jokes leave marks. And for the first time in weeks, she wasn't angry. She was afraid, because she finally understood. This wasn't a man who lost control. This was a man who took it back, piece by piece, memory by memory, room by room, and she had no idea how many more exhibits were still to come. It arrived with the kind of pomp that made her pause mid-step: thick ivory cardstock, embossed calligraphy, gold foil trim, real wax seal, the kind of envelope you don't rip open, you open. She turned it over, reading the return address: Founders Circle, Private Investors Consortium. For a second, her breath hitched. Mark used to talk about that group like it was some mythical lodge for business royalty. Years ago, he'd pulled up an article on his laptop and pointed to a photo from one of their dinners. Dark suits, elegant gowns, aged scotch and cut glass tumblers. "These are the people who make the rules," he'd said, "not follow them." Back then, it was a dream, something too expensive, too far off. "Maybe in my 50s, he'd joked once, closing the screen. "Once I have more than just bruises and bills." And now, this, an invitation, not addressed to them, just to her. Mrs. Hannah Langford, not end guest, not Langford family, just her name, as if the group had decided she was still someone worth inviting. Or maybe Mark had added her name himself. A peace offering, a lifeline, a breadcrumb. Her fingers trembled slightly. She RSVP'd before she had time to second-guess it. The event was held in the Grand Pavilion downtown, a restored mansion with oil paintings of people who'd probably owned railroads and casually ruined lives. She pulled out one of her last designer dresses, black, sharp-shouldered, with a slit just scandalous enough to say, "I'm still relevant," without begging. She arrived alone, wore heels that made her knees ache but her spine straighter. The doorman nodded, the valet took her keys. A string quartet played something she couldn't name, but pretended she recognized. She smiled at strangers in tailored suits who smelled like wealth and disinterest. At the check-in table, a young woman in a silk blouse looked up, tablet in hand. "Name?" she asked politely. "Hannah Langford," she said with practiced poise. The woman tapped, swiped, tapped again. "Hannah?" she repeated. "Langford," Hannah said again, the syllables now sounding foreign, hollow. Another tap, another pause. "I'm sorry, you're not on the list." Hannah blinked. "There must be a mistake. I got the invitation." The woman offered a tight-lipped smile. "If you have the physical card, I can take a look." Hannah fished it out of her clutch and handed it over. The woman examined it briefly, then looked at the embossed return name, then back at the screen. "Oh," she said slowly. "This might have been an internal routing error. It was probably addressed to Mark Langford, but—" She trailed off, didn't finish the sentence. "But it has my name on it," Hannah said, voice tightening. The woman gave a sympathetic smile, the kind you give someone who's about to cry in public. "I can't grant you entry without your name on the guest list. I'm truly sorry." Hannah stood frozen, heat blooming across her cheeks, the back of her neck prickling. A man in a white dinner jacket cleared his throat behind her. Another couple whispered. The young woman gently slid the invitation back toward her. Then Hannah saw him. Through the arched entryway to the ballroom, Mark was standing under a chandelier, drink in hand, laughing, surrounded by half a dozen men in dark suits and one woman in a navy dress that probably cost someone's mortgage. He looked comfortable, clean-shaven, confident. He was telling a story, gesturing with his free hand, and they were all locked on him. The same man who used to practice elevator pitches in their bathroom mirror, who once skipped a conference because he couldn't afford the plane ticket, who used to wonder out loud whether any of this hustle will ever actually matter. He looked up, just for a second, saw her, paused, and then he smiled. Not a smirk, not mockery, just a calm, polite, nothing to see here smile. Then he turned back to the group and kept talking. Didn't wave, didn't approach, didn't acknowledge the invitation, didn't save her. She didn't cry, not there. She nodded to the check-in woman, turned and walked slowly, heels now feeling like knives, past the valet station, past the flickering torches lining the walkway, past a couple posing for photos beneath the event banner. She got into the car, closed the door, and sat in silence. The envelope was still in her hand. Fingers clenched tight around the wax seal. It had her name on it, but his fingerprints were all over it. This wasn't a mistake. It was the next exhibit. Mark wasn't just moving on. He was curating her exclusion. From every memory, every network, every future room that used to be theirs. She wasn't a partner anymore. She wasn't even a footnote, just a name on the wrong invitation. She didn't plan on going. Not really, not after the humiliation at the Founders Circle dinner, not after standing outside that ballroom like an unwanted delivery, not after seeing Mark, thriving, polished, magnetic, moving through that elite world like he'd always belonged there, and she'd just been the misprint on his invitation. But when she heard about the next event, a charity gala tied to his latest venture, she couldn't help herself. Her stylist friend mentioned it casually like it was already legend. Big night, Langford's keynote, everyone's going. Langford's keynote. The way they said his name, like it was currency now. She looked it up, found the date, the venue. No invite this time, no card to be mistaken about. But she knew the hotel, knew the layout. They'd stayed there for their 10th anniversary. He once joked that the ballroom smelled like old money and newer mistakes. She arrived late, dressed down, no makeup, hair tied back, not to be seen. Just to see, the side entrance was still where it used to be, past the service alley, near the staff break benches. Unlocked, security focused on the front. She slipped in. The air buzzed with soft music, clinking glasses, and the faint echo of applause as someone finished a speech. She crept along the corridor, found a shadowed corner just outside the main room where the double doors had been propped open. She didn't need to be inside. She just needed to hear. The MC took the stage again. And now, to close the night, a few words from our host, the man behind the mission, Mark Langford. The room applauded. Loud, warm, familiar. She edged closer. Her heart pounded in that sickening, dizzy way, like adrenaline but colder. Then his voice, calm, grounded, confident. Thank you all. It's been a year of change and clarity. Some of it welcomed, some of it earned. Soft chuckles. He waited. This year taught me something important, he said, pausing just enough to own the silence. Loyalty isn't passive, it's a daily choice, and it can't be joked about. A murmur rolled through the audience, that ripple when a room knows. He kept going. Commitment isn't a punchline. If someone makes it one, they were never in it to begin with. They were just waiting to laugh. More chuckles, then claps. I used to think endurance was love. Now I know. It's direction. You either walk toward someone or away. There is no standing still. Someone near the doorway whispered, loud enough for her to hear. I heard he walked out on her mid-party. Genius. A woman next to her added, he dropped the ring into her ex's hand, like handed it over. That's next level cold. Then laughter, that low, knowing, cruel kind of laughter people save for stories that aren't theirs, but feel good to retell. Her cheeks burned. She backed deeper into the shadow, hand over her mouth like that could stop the sound from seeping into her bones. He never said her name, not once, but every word was a scalpel, every sentence built for the crowd and the ghost in the hallway. She remembered the night of their 5th anniversary when he stayed up late writing a toast, agonizing over every line because he wanted to make her laugh. not cry. He practiced in front of the mirror, changed partner to best friend because it felt more honest. Now his words weren't meant for her, they were against her, and he didn't need to shout. He had something sharper now. Audience. He ended the speech simply. To all of you who know what real commitment looks like, thank you. And to those learning it the hard way, I hope it's worth the lesson. Applause, standing ovation. From her angle, she could see his silhouette on the stage, still. Hands clasped, no smile, just calm. He'd said everything without saying her, and, somehow, that made it worse. She slipped out the side door as the crowd started to rise. No one saw her. No one called her name. She wasn't late, she was unwritten, erased. The version of her that once stood beside him at events like this, gone. Now she was the unnamed anecdote, the offhand reference, the silent cautionary tale told between glasses of overpriced wine. She stepped into the cold night, heels echoing in the alley. Even the stars felt like they were looking somewhere else. She didn't know she was going to do it, not consciously, but when he stepped off that stage, applause still humming behind him, and walked toward the back lot instead of the valet line, something in her body moved before her mind caught up. She took the long way around the building, heels crunching through the mulch bed, dress catching in a rose bush. Didn't feel it, didn't care. By the time she reached the parking lot, he was already at his car, midnight blue, immaculate, cleaner than it had ever been in their marriage. He opened the driver's side door, but she called out, "Mark!" He froze, turned. She stood about 10 feet away, breath ragged, mascara smudged from either wind or shame. "You really meant to throw away 22 years?" Her voice cracked at the end. It surprised even her. He didn't answer right away, just looked at her, not with hatred, not with pity, no clenched fists, no scoffs, just stillness. Then he said softly, "I didn't throw away 22 years." She blinked. "You did," he said, in about 30 seconds. He didn't raise his voice, didn't gesture, didn't throw it at her like a weapon. He just said it like it was the weather. She stepped closer. "Mark, it was just a joke. You know that." He tilted his head slightly, like she'd just confirmed something for him. "Exactly," he said. Then he opened the door wider. "That's what this was, too." She stared at him, brows furrowing. "What are you talking about?" He paused, just long enough for her to feel the weight of the moment land. "This whole year," he said. "All of it. The silence, the exit, the transfer, the parties, the gala, the toast. It was just a joke, Hannah." She shook her head. "That's not funny." "No," he agreed. "It's not." He got into the car. She rushed forward. "So that's it? That's what I am to you now? A bit? A punchline?" He closed the door gently, rolled down the window halfway. "You were more than that," he said. "Until you weren't." The window slid back up. She stood frozen under the glow of the parking lot lamp, its buzzing fluorescent light turning her skin pale and her shadow long behind her. The engine started. The car pulled out slow. No screech, no drama, just movement, just leaving. She watched the taillights disappear into the dark. Her phone buzzed in her purse, a group chat, old friends sharing photos from the gala. One read, "Mark's speech? Legendary. I heard his ex was lurking around. Awkward." She deleted the thread, looked up. The lot was empty now. No guests, no doorman, just her, no ring, no backup, no narrative, just a woman who laughed at the wrong thing in front of the wrong man at the wrong time. And the punchline? The punchline was her.